Lantana was left silent until Parker accidentally dropped his cup due to the shock. Lantana smiled and exclaimed that she was right, and then very happily shared how the rumors claimed he really could read people's hearts. She explained that Lantana is the name given to her on her birthday by her mother because she looked like the white lantana flowers. She then revealed her true name as Marissa Ruberazan Arconia. She mentioned a spell for a color change enchantment that now shows her real appearance. Marissa mentioned that she was the one who requested his help. She explained that she was searching for the traitor who betrayed the emperor. Despite narrowing it down to 3 people, they couldn't find enough evidence. Revealing the imperial family's suspicion would cause a big uproar, so the task must be completed secretly. As the first imperial princess, she couldn't directly command him. She clarified that the people he needed to read were Count Endymion, Duke Delphia, and the 5th imperial prince Gersh Ruberazan Arcadian, who was her younger brother. Later that day, Nubian started touching the crystal flower after Ahura told him to stop bullying it. Nubian asked if the flowers had human rights, and Ahura said he knew Nubian was doing it on purpose to annoy him. It had started raining, and the raindrops touched the flower, turning its color from white to pink. Estio quickly moved the flower away from the rain, claiming that it was scared of the rain sounds, and surprisingly, the flower expressed its gratitude while calling Estio the last seed of the black ones. Its words caught Estio off guard, but he chose to stay silent. Now, it's been a week, and the rain hasn't stopped. Nubian explained that it was normal during the rainy season, but Parker was feeling desperate. Looking outside, Parker noticed a horse carriage, and Ben shared that it seemed like the invitation had arrived. In a rush, Parker informed Kai about it, and the crystal flower insisted on being taken along. Half an hour later, Talon appeared and introduced himself as the knight in the service of the first imperial princess. He explained to Estio that once they got on the carriage, they would act as guild members tasked with guarding Duke Mubian Hygar. The Duke would be attending the royal birthday celebration of the first imperial princess. Talon mentioned that if any trouble arises within the palace, the imperial family won't guarantee their protection. Estio accepted the request, and they departed immediately. Upon arriving at the first imperial princess's garden, the scene was beautiful. Parker likened it to being inside a waterfall. Following protocol, Marissa welcomed them, and Nubian greeted Marissa with the utmost respect as her subject. However, Hyger wondered if the greeting sounded too formal for people who might think it was their first meeting. Marissa claimed that way was better to avoid suspicions. With a menacing face, she then told them to follow her every order. The atmosphere got heavy. Marissa, after a moment of seriousness, burst into laughter, revealing it was all a joke. She then instructed a maid to bring tea for some sly nobles who would be arriving soon. They sat at the table, trying to relax. Nubian realized he hadn't heard much about the first imperial princess engaging in any social activities. Despite receiving many praises for her personality and character, she was known for activities outside the palace, helping people. Understandably, she had strong support. He also heard she gave up on succession, but it was natural for the other imperial children to be cautious. Parker was initially relaxed but then noticed he was being discourteous in front of the imperial princess. However, she assured him it was fine. The tea they were drinking had a rare medicine that calmed the heart and loosened the tension in the body, explaining Parker's newfound relaxation. Marissa added that the Ignis Guild would always be a friend to the royal family, having discovered the answer in the labyrinth. Estio inquired if all the flowers used in the tea were grown by her, and she confirmed. She remarked that she had seen many people and animals but none as honest as flowers, which cannot make sounds. She mused that perhaps she fooled herself into thinking they liked her too. Talon was then instructed to guide them to the room where the dinner party would be held. Estio approached the princess and expressed his desire to return the crystal flower to her. When asked why, Estio explained that it would be better if the flower returned to its original owner. As she held the flower, she felt as if it were happy to be back with her. Looking at Estio, she pondered that he might be more special than she initially thought. Estio inquired about Suki's whereabouts, making Niju upset, who suggested she might have been kidnapped. Ahura commented that Suki getting kidnapped would probably be the last thing to worry about. The butler welcomed them and showed them which door to enter. They went into the room, and I have to say, Nubian looked really stylish in his new outfit, no kidding. People quietly chatted about Duke Nubian, wondering if he was in a relationship with the imperial princess, but nobody was sure if it was true. Marissa greeted Nubian and thanked him for accepting her invitation. He bowed and congratulated her on reaching her 21st birthday. People glanced at Estio, wondering if he was Nubian's brother. Then, someone approached Nubian and expressed joy at seeing him again. He introduced himself as Rizi Endymion, mentioning that he had taken over as the head of the Endymion family earlier that year. Nubian mentioned that he heard the princess was waiting to see if Rizi was a suitable person. His thoughts just hoped that Rizi was not a traitor. Nubian then asked for Rizi's second name, but he started falling silent and anxious. Estio heard his thoughts of not being recognized by the Holy Palace, and called Nubian insensitive. Estio then tried to stop Nubian, but a few seconds later, another person entered. Everyone was surprised and Nubian respectfully greeted the person that just arrived. That person was Prince Gersh, the 5th Imperial Prince of Arcadia. Marissa was surprised to see him, and told him he should have said something since she didn't even know he was there. They were happy to see each other, and Estio just observed them. Gersh mentioned he had to leave because he was very busy. All he wanted was to personally give Marissa a gift. He showed her a holy artifact, a necklace with the power to cure wounds. Marissa thought it was very pretty and put it on. Gersh then looked at Estio and Nubian, calling them dogs in front of Marissa. He said he knew she was testing him. After hugging her, he asked Marissa to be by his side and never abandon him. Speaking in a whisper, he requested her support. Gersh looked at Estio and signaled him not to interfere. He communicated with Estio telepathically, asking him to stay still and not do anything. Gersh promised to protect Estio from the enemy threatening the Ignis Guild. He menacingly threatened to destroy Estio's guild if he got in the way. Gersh advised Estio to be careful and wise in choosing the new emperor of Rebrizen. Later that day, Nubian told Estio that Gersh was annoying and just a plain copy of Emperor Parker. Estio, unaware of the situation, thought Gersh was cool for bringing a gift to his sister. Seeing how close the siblings were, Parker commented positively on Gersh's actions. He began thinking about how the upcoming generation would be quite peaceful. Parker, curious, asked Estio why he had been silent for a while. Estio responded, mentioning there seemed to be a problem. Nubian, Parker, and Kai were all ears. Estio then spent about an hour explaining the situation regarding the 5th Imperial Prince. After the explanation, Parker felt terrified and pleaded with Estio to abandon the request and leave as quickly as possible. Nubian agreed but reminded everyone about the Imperial Princess's warning that their heads would be sent flying if they failed the request. Parker now grasped that they weren't just searching for the turncoat. It was now a battle for the throne. Tai asked Estio what he would do, but Estio claimed he was not the one to make that decision. Later, Marissa promised to cancel the request and provide the cancellation charge. She mentioned there was no need to meet Duke Delphia, concluding the request at that moment. She pondered about her brother Gersh not having strong support for the throne. Estio interrupted her thoughts, stating that Gersh is much stronger than she thinks and has been preparing for the throne since a young age. Marissa was annoyed that Estio listened in on private conversations and revealed she had given him special treatment because of the request. She ordered Estio not to interfere anymore. Nubian suggested they return, and they did. Marissa took her leave, contemplating if Gersh was indeed stronger than she thought, and had been preparing for the throne for a while. She also wondered if all 3 suspects were working together. As they began walking back home, Marissa suddenly shouted, "Wait, please wait!" She then turned to Estio and inquired about how deeply he could read hearts. Estio, curious, responded by asking her how much she wanted to know. Marissa, with her hand on his shoulder trembling, explained that she needed to stop Gersh. Urging Estio to tell her everything he could read, he eventually agreed. After revealing her brother's plan to seize the throne, they decided to move to the Delphia territory. Upon their arrival, Lord Sinplatina Delphia welcomed the 1st Imperial Princess and mentioned that he had prepared a warm bath for her relaxation. However, Lord Delphia noticed Nubian and questioned why he, a high-ranking individual, accompanied the Imperial Princess. Nubian replied, expressing sadness at such a perspective, asserting that they still had blood ties with the princess. Lord Delphia argued that if Nubian truly loved the imperial family as he claimed, the situation wouldn't have led to their meeting. Nubian countered, stating that the imperial princess had a specific reason for coming all the way to the Delphia territory, and asked Lord Delphia to explain why that was the case. Delphia got really angry and told Nubian that he talked too much. Nubian replied with a thank you for the compliment. Delphia then turned away, saying that the servants would show him to his room. They sat at the table, and Delphia asked about the commoners. Marissa explained they were her people, and he shouldn't pay them much mind. Delphia respectfully said he understood. Marissa mentioned she came to turn his heart back. When he asked what she meant, she said since they were in a formal setting, there was no need to act. She then immediately asked him which liege he served. After some hesitation, he took a knee and declared that the children of Delphia would serve only His Majesty, the Emperor, then and in the future. Marissa screamed, accusing him of lying, and asked who had the outrageous thought to aim for power. Delphia denied anyone dared to think such things, but Gersh, His Highness, fulfilled the duty of making his servants pick their own masters. Marissa had shouted when the crown prince was announced, but it wasn't Gersh, it was Ruche. Delphia clarified that Crown Prince Ruche planned to eliminate his siblings once he took the throne. Delphia insisted that Prince Gersh, who chose to fight, was truly young but chose to fight so he could protect Marissa, his sister. Delphia emphatically declared that the Delphia family would remain loyal to the Emperor, regardless of the situation. Marissa, feeling upset, simply walked away, mentioning they would return home the next day. Later that day, everyone went to their room and discussed the internal conflict happening in the Empire. Estio then told Mubian, expressing uncertainty about proceeding with the request. When everyone fell silent, Ahura suggested that Estio could control everyone. He could command them not to kill, solving the issue. Estio explained that his power wouldn't last very long, making it challenging unless he stayed within the palace. Deep down, Estio hesitated to use his ability, questioning if the ongoing wars were the reason for the growing distance between dragons and humans. Ahura then suggested that Mubian also support the fifth prince just like the Delphias, but Mubian rejected the idea by saying that his side was different. The following day, Suki approached Estio and told him she had located the father of the child who had inquired about the request. She mentioned finding traces of him taken to the palace of the fifth imperial prince, and currently, he was in the capital. Kai appeared and assumed that Suki found Rian's father. Estio told her about Suki's findings and explained that rangers were often abducted. Suki confirmed that it was not only Rian's father that was taken to the capital. Suki expressed concern, noting that he and the other captured villagers weren't being treated well. They seemed to be undergoing secret training, making it challenging to meet them. Estio thanked Suki and hugged her, advising her to inform him before going out in the future. When the day to return home arrived, Marissa realized she almost didn't know that Gersh was planning to fight against the Emperor. If the Crown Prince intended to eliminate all other heirs, it suggested the Emperor was aware but turning a blind eye. Standing in front of the portal, Marissa thanked Estio for his assistance. Something flew in front of her, and then boom, an explosion. Her guards stood in front of her and protected her. As she wondered what had just happened, she saw some unknown hooded people casting spells at her. Her soldiers said that they were skilled individuals with fairly high magical training. She quickly ordered them to capture one of them to find out who sent them. The magicians cast some fire spells, and then disappeared from their sight. However, we see Estio standing in the smoke with one of the magicians. Marissa ordered her soldier to quickly help Estio because he wasn't a combat member. The remaining magicians started running and calling for their friend to move quickly. However, their friend just stood in place, shaking in fear, telling them his feet weren't working. They just couldn't move an inch. Estio stood in front of the magician, his blue eyes now glowing with menace. The other magicians ran away in fear. The magician, confused, wondered what just happened. The magician thought he had caught Estio's eyes for a moment, and suddenly he found himself paralyzed. Meanwhile, Mubian arrived, piling bodies on the floor, claiming he captured them easily, though one of them ended up dead. Niju joined, carrying two magicians on her shoulders, while Parker, with a delivery, had another magician. The magician demanded Estio to kill him, but Estio instead ordered him to sit down. The magician sat forcefully, teeth clenched in disbelief. Estio took control of the magician's body, making him drop his weapon and put his hands on his head. The magician couldn't believe how his body wasn't obeying him. It became clear that the magician was a member of the Magic Guild Palagon, one of the best professional magic guilds consisting only of magicians. The attack had been orchestrated by the Crown Prince Ruche. Marissa had started to believe Delphia's claim that Ruche wanted to eliminate everyone, but she still needed more proof. Later, Kai asked Estio if he had thought about preparing for when Shuanan targeted the guild, solving the power conflict, and using it as a reason to protect the guild. Estio replied that it wasn't his intention, he just wanted to help the imperial princess. Kai thought that as soon as she recognized Estio's identity, she started treating him like a weapon against Shuanan. However, Estio was different from Shuanan. He wasn't consumed by rage and displayed many human emotions. Just then, the group noticed a crystal flower that didn't look lively. Everyone looked at Estio, who quickly checked on it. Estio noticed that the crystal flower was dying. It told Estio that no one was happy when their life was already exhausting. Still, the crystal flower thanked Estio for everything. A little later, a maid came and informed everyone that the imperial princess Marissa had invited them to a feast. The feast they attended looked amazing, with a variety of dishes and drinks. Everyone hurried to sit and start eating. As they sat down, Estio called Princess Marissa, and she asked him if there was something he wanted to tell her. Before he could answer, she panicked and asked if she had made him uncomfortable, or something. Estio had denied it, then he glanced at her with confusion when she asked about his expression. She went on to explain that it wasn't that something was wrong, but he always seemed to have the same expression. Curious, she continued apologizing. Estio looked down, now more attentive, realizing she was correct. People who couldn't read emotions directly often relied on facial expressions. It might be odd if he always had the same one. Not responding to any of her questions, Estio broke the silence when she offered him a drink made with good flower petals. She took a sip first, and both Estio and Mubian followed suit. Mubian, noticing something interesting about the drink, mentioned that he did enjoy similar beverages but found this one had a unique scent. She explained that it was made of a golden-colored flower, very precious because it bloomed only once every 10 years. She added that people used to believe the nectar from this flower had a quality like a drug, even capable of attracting dragons. It had a captivating scent that could lure a dragon. Since the dragons had left a long time ago, the flower became a pitiful one with no target to seduce. Suki called Estio's name, and when he turned, she suggested it would be best for him not to drink that liquid. Marissa reminded Estio that he had something to say. He told her that the crystal flower he returned to her was withering. She mentioned how it looked quite bright and lively. Estio explained that these flowers live only for a year, so when they fade, it's a natural event. She said that the flower's lifespan might be short, but she didn't intentionally send a low-quality flower. Estio just mentioned that the flower requested to be returned to her because, with its last remaining life, it wished to return to her side. Marissa had been surprised to hear that. She asked Estio if he could read the hearts of things other than humans, and whether plants could feel emotions like that too. After Estio explained that indeed, plants could feel emotions, Marissa, in shock, mentioned how she wished she had known that a little earlier. Suddenly, she stopped mid-sentence, got up, and urgently told Estio that she needed to see something right away before it withered. She pleaded with him to explain what the child, referring to the flower, was saying. They ran, and Niju told Ahura that she could smell something strange. Ahura dismissed it, suggesting it was probably just a fart, and they should follow Marissa. However, Niju wasn't convinced and stood up, alert as if she remembered the real nature of the smell. Marissa led Estio to the glass garden, revealing it as a gift from the Emperor when she turned 5. Over time, gardening had become her hobby, and her flowers flourished as she showered them with love. She used to think it was a one-way interaction where she cared for them, but now, thanks to Estio, she learned that her flowers, her children, could love her in return. Seconds later, Niji came running, panic-stricken, and exclaimed that she could smell something burning. Everyone turned around, and Niji screamed that there was a fire. It was confirmed that a fire started at the garden's entrance. Parker hoped that it was nothing serious, but an anxious Marissa claimed there was only one entrance. Sensing that something was off, Mubian told the others to run away. They were relieved to see that the fire was small, but as soon as they tried to get out, something exploded. Mubian told Marissa to back off since it was an attack. Marissa's maid, Pansy, appeared. Marissa was glad to see her and ran toward her. Pansy apologized to her and disappeared while the entrance closed. Mubian reminded Marissa about the traitor. Marissa agreed as she knew that the palace itself was a battlefield. Mubian then tried to break the door, but the garden's magical protection was strong. Kai confirmed that she couldn't do anything since her dolls were made of wood. Mubian started thinking of a solution. He then asked Marissa if there was a water source in the garden, and Marissa confirmed that there was a pond. They moved quickly, and it didn't take long for the fire to be put out. Marissa then suggested going out. Nubian stopped her and told her to look outside. Blood splattered everywhere, and Nubian said that this was the result of her trusting the Emperor. The others checked on Estiel, who had been sweating for a while. He had been feeling hot for quite some time already. Nubian checked on him. Marissa noticed how Nubian was speaking formally with Estiel. Estiel then told Marissa that her precious flowers wanted to talk to her. Just then, the flowers and plants in the garden started talking to the confused Marissa. Estiel confirmed that all the plants under Marissa's care were talking to her. However, his control was starting to slip away. The plants then claimed that it was their turn to protect Marissa. Parker noticed the branches moving, and the garden was not hot anymore. The commotion outside also died down. Just then, the Imperial Knights appeared, and Marissa was glad that rescue had come. She then noticed ashes flying around. The plants claimed it was their turn to protect her. Marissa cried and thanked them. She then talked to the crystal flower she was holding and hoped she could talk to it more. However, the plant's end was nearing. Marissa then thought of giving it a name and called it Pearl, so she could forever remember the crystal flower. Kai intervened and claimed she could save Pearl. However, it would be in a different form already. Still, Marissa asked for Kai's help. After the incident, all servants and security were replaced by new ones, and a few of them got their heads chopped off. However, there was no focus on finding the main culprit, and the Emperor continued letting his children fight for the throne. Marissa wondered if the current nation was something that had a king who cared for his subjects. Estiel looked at her with a worried face. With a resolution, Marissa announced that she would become the Emperor and asked Estiel to be by her side. Soon after, a carriage left, and Marissa felt disappointed. Someone appeared and wondered why Marissa didn't try to convince Estiel further. Marissa noticed that they were resolute to go home. Still, Marissa smiled and wanted to continue working, so she asked Pearl to go with her. With a smile, Pearl agreed. Meanwhile, in the carriage, Niju and Suki were arguing. Parker and Nubian were shocked to hear Suki's voice. Nubian was getting worried since Estiel's power was out of control because of the nectar. Estiel soon woke up and wondered if they had already reached their destination. Niju told him that they still needed to walk. Everyone then walked among the crowd and got worried, seeing Estiel walk slowly. Estiel then asked Niju to bring her to their lodgings. Niju wondered why he was closing his eyes. Estiel claimed that he was trying to avoid eye contact. Niju was confused but still followed Estiel's request. The group was soon greeted by the guild receptionist, and Estiel asked Parker to process the quest completion. The receptionist wondered if Estiel had hurt his eyes and suggested getting a healer. Estiel declined a healing and asked for a blindfold instead. The receptionist then gave them information about Isaac, Rian's father. She then decided to give it to one of Estiel's party members. She handed it over to Kai while calling her little one. Estiel then told her to stop the information gathering about Isaac and focus on Shuanan next. The guild receptionist then confirmed that Shuanan would move soon into the Holy Palace. She claimed that the current pontiff just retired, and Kai realized that the Holy Palace was taking action already. She ended the report, and promised to deliver more information next time. Parker returned after processing the documents, and discovered everyone looked like they had just seen a ghost. Nubian told him that they would see something much worse than a ghost. Kai claimed she would rather meet a ghost. Meanwhile, Estiel's power was still not under his control. Nubian got worried and told Estiel to rest as he looked for Isaac on his own. Estiel still wanted to go since it was a personal request for him. Nubian reminded him that, as a guardian, he would follow Estiel anywhere. On the other hand, Kai temporarily backed off since she needed to focus on making countermeasures against Shuanan. Estiel then asked Suki to guide them. The group soon arrived at the dirty slums and stopped by a door. Nubian was in disarray, but Suki was certain about it. He then knocked on the door and used Rian's name. Someone opened the door, and Nubian started talking about Rian's request. The man who opened the door was surprised to see people from the guild. He then guided them, and on the way, they could smell blood and urine. Estiel wondered if the man lying down in front of them was alive. The man confirmed that the man was alive for now and claimed that there was no point in healing them. The man reminded them that their place was technically a garbage dump for the Empire and left. Estiel then talked to Isaac, who was on his deathbed. He told Isaac that his son was healthy. Isaac tried to thank Estiel, but he started coughing up blood. Estio then told Isaac to answer using his thoughts. Isaac then asked Estio to tell Rian how he died. He claimed that he went to the Empire on his own will and didn't regret it. His only regret was not returning to Rian. He asked Estio to tell his son that he loved him. Tears fell from his eyes while he thanked Estio, and Isaac breathed his last. Meanwhile, Niju was left outside, and some slum people tried to steal her away, assuming that she was Ignis Guild's pet. Niju suddenly heard something and looked around. She then got attacked, but it was ineffective. Niju then grabbed the stick and talked. The men were shocked to hear a beast talk. Seeing that it was a rare monster, they got more interested in capturing Niju and selling her. Niju's attacker then tried to run away, but the others killed him on the spot. They called her a monster and tried to use the dead person as food. Niju got mad and exclaimed that she was not a monster. Just then, a bottle hit her, and some sort of liquid spread on her. The men celebrated since they knew that the liquid could suppress monsters. However, Niju started growling and howling like a monster. She then attacked the men, and blood splattered. Estio came out and tried to calm her down. Niju was angered that the men killed their own friend and tried to feed him to her. She apologized, saying that her eyes became cloudy and she couldn't sit still. Estio apologized for coming late, and Niju reverted to her cuter form. Estio wore his blindfold again and told her to go back with him. A few days later, Estio's powers were still not under his control. He couldn't believe that he couldn't control his own powers. He knew that the yellow dragon Shuanan should know how to control it. However, he recalled that Shuanan despised the black dragons. Just when he thought of asking for help, Kai suddenly appeared after sneaking in. She then looked for the others and complained about leaving Estio alone. Nubian and Parker arrived and claimed that Kai was far more irresponsible in her role as the guild master. Kai then claimed she got both good and bad news related to Shuanan. The good news was that Shuanan stopped moving and was thinking of becoming the pontiff. However, it was also a piece of bad news since the emperor wouldn't be able to defy Shuanan once he became the pontiff. The emperor would be forced to take Shuanan's side. Parker then wondered why that would be a problem. Kai then finally told Parker that Shuanan was a dragon. Parker took the answer calmly but soon realized something. Kai wondered if Parker wanted to learn more, but the avian refused. Estio then asked for the bad news. Kai handed over a piece of paper, and Estio read it. It looked like Shuanan had finally discovered the identity of the black dragon and requested to meet Estio. Shuanan wanted Estio to attend the day of God's holy pillar of light and spill his blood on the altar to show the truth. Nubian noticed that it was a demand, not a request. Ahuru joked around that Shuanan made the request sound like a poem. Kai then explained that the event was for the inauguration of the pontiff. It was basically a baptism, not by man but by God. If the pillar of light illuminated the Elysium, then the pontiff is decided. Nubian could sense that they wouldn't be able to refuse the request. Kai knew that Shuanan would destroy the guild while looking for Estio since the only emotion that Shuanan had for the black dragon was hatred. As everyone fell silent, Parker wondered if Estio would be killed since Shuanan asked him to spill his blood. Kai reminded them that murder was taboo in the Holy Palace. She assumed that Shuanan had other methods to deal with Estio. While the others were thinking, Nubian exclaimed that there was no point in finding out the Yellow Dragon's plan and that he should just focus on protecting his master. Kai agreed and swore to find more information about the matter. Estio then claimed that he would leave the guild if he couldn't do anything before the pontiff's inauguration. Kai told him not to worry since the Ignis Guild wouldn't also sit still. Estio doesn't want the others to be in danger because of him. He claimed that he wanted to meet those who hated him. He would meet the first among his kin, and he doesn't want to harm the guild further. He told Kai that he would drop out of the guild. He wondered if Kai was disappointed. In the first place, Estio didn't care if someone would hate him. All he wanted was to protect her. Kai then sighed and decided to meet Shuanan altogether, confusing Estio. She explained that the Ignis Guild would always be on Estio's side, no matter what. She reminded him that Estio was a guild leader, and the title was not for show. Nubian then wondered if they would have free time. Kai agreed and claimed that the combat members were not needed in the meantime. Nubian found Kai heartless and claimed to enjoy his time outside of his territory. With a bright smile, Kai asked Estio to return to the guild headquarters. Estio just silently nodded his head. Parker and Nubian soon went off on their own. They noticed how summer was ending, and Nubian excitedly mentioned the upcoming Autumn Leaf Festival in Ruberazin. They couldn't do the same in Hygar territory because of the monsters, so Nubian would enjoy the festival in Ruberazin. Parker then recalled that the leaves were also pretty in the avian village, deep within the mountains. He described how the leaves turned into different colors and how delicious the fruits were. Nubian then wondered if Parker would go home, but Parker claimed he was enjoying living at the guild headquarters as his home. Of course, we would still go back home during vacations if we wanted to bring the gang there. Suddenly, Niju appeared, wanting to visit the avian village too. She was confident in climbing the mountains, but Parker expected that it would be hard. Later that day, Estio's party arrived at the ranger village. Suddenly, they were surprised by the excited screams of the children. Rian then asked Estio about his father with an excited face. Estio got anxious upon Rian wondered if Estio hurt his eyes, as he wore a blindfold. Estio then knelt in front of Rian and said he had something to share about Rian's father. Silence fell, and only the wind made a sound. Estio talked about Rian's father's final moments in the capital's slums. Adults and kids listening to Estio burst into tears. Rian was devastated, and Estio apologized for bringing such news. Rian told Estio not to apologize, as he had kept his promise and vowed to repay him in the future. Estio was too shocked to speak, even when they returned to the guild. Nubian, noticing Estio's preoccupation, wondered if he was concerned about Rian. Estio assumed he was resented for being thanked despite delivering bad news. Nubian clarified that Estio had fulfilled the request to deliver news about Rian's father, and questioned why Estio would be resented. Estio understood that humans sometimes needed something to resent. At that moment, Parker saw how bustling the guild was. Kai explained that it was due to a power struggle within the imperial family. She warned them not to pick sides, and Estio agreed. Kai also reminded Estio about Shohanen's pontiff inauguration before heading off to handle guild master duties. Parker then approached with a stack of request letters. Estio requested him to filter out anything related to the imperial family, leaving only 9 requests. Despite the reduced workload, it was still a significant amount. Estio seemed eager to start working on them immediately, but Parker noticed and suggested his leader take a break first. Nubian chimed in, proposing a vacation since they had an extended break. Out of the blue, Estio inquired about the headquarters culinary department. Parker informed him that only cooks managed the guild's public cafeteria. He offered to help if Estio was hungry, but Estio insisted it was related to a specific request. Parker felt surprised when someone from the guild asked for help from other guild members. Cheese, who led the culinary department, said there were 2 troublemaking creatures in the kitchen. Concerned, Parker asked Estio if they should take on the request. Estio decided not to ignore the problem. Parker wondered if the guild might disband, but Estio advised him to step back from the request, shocking Parker. Estio explained they wouldn't go far for it, making Parker sad. Estio then told everyone to rest until the next day, while Parker took an indefinite break. Stunned, Parker said Estio shouldn't always be considerate. The following day, Nubian and Estio went to the culinary department, leaving Niju and Suki behind. As usual, Estio praised Nubian for doing a great job with him. Nubian suggested taking their time since they had just eaten lunch. Approaching the culinary department, they suddenly heard someone shouting and cursing, criticizing a dish that had been served. A blonde man kept getting mad and yelling at the cooks. Nubian sighed, and Estio put his blindfold back on because the noise was giving him a headache. Nubian hoped they didn't have to yell back. The blonde man was looking for the chef who made his food too spicy. The chefs kept saying sorry, but the blonde man was still angry because his friend with a weak stomach had fainted and been taken away to recover. Nubian noticed that the blonde man was turning red not from anger, but because of the spiciness. Just then, the main chef showed up. The blonde man suddenly calmed down in front of the big chef. He realized there were 2 chefs. Estio knew one of them was fake. The 2 head chefs started arguing, each saying they were the real ones. The blonde man wondered if they were twins, but both chefs said they were only children. Suddenly, one of the cooks noticed Nubian and Estio at the kitchen entrance. He wondered if Estio was the leader after seeing his attire. Estio confirmed that he had come in response to a request. He suddenly started crying, making Estio and Nubian flustered. He was just thankful that the leader had arrived since it had been challenging for them in the last few days. They couldn't figure out who the real chef was among them. Nubian told him to calm down and explain things to them. The cook then mentioned that a doppelganger had escaped from the Magic Research Division and entered the kitchen. A doppelganger is a mental-type monster that acts like a mirror, able to change into a complete copy of the person who looked at it. After transforming, it became difficult to tell who the real chef was. One of the cooks was relieved that it didn't harm anyone, but it kept messing with their cooking through pranks, and it kept looking for attention. While the cooks thanked Estio for coming, someone suddenly appeared and suggested killing both chefs. It was Burong. Estio and Nubian cheerfully greeted her, but Burong was disappointed to see Nubian around since he was not a guild member. Nubian claimed he was just assisting in this matter. Burong felt disgusted seeing someone with top sword skills like Nubian serving a kid like Estio. However, Nubian was proud, as from Bairang's perspective, it seemed like he was serving Estio well. Burong had walked away and brought out her weapon. Nubian had warned her that it wasn't her request but Estio's. Burong then pointed her weapon at one of the chefs and announced that she had received a request from the Magic Research Division to eliminate the escaped monster. She told the two chefs to speak up and identify the real one. The chefs argued until Burong decided to slash both of them. They tried to calm her down, explaining that they had requested Estio's help. Burong realized that the leader wouldn't allow her to kill them since a formal request had been given. She wondered about Estio's blindfold and questioned why he wore it. Estio claimed it was nothing. Burong pondered how Estio could determine the real chef with his eyes covered, knowing he couldn't use his heart-reading ability. Estio asked the chefs to put their hands on his, making them confused. Both chefs touched Estio's hands, and Burong wondered if Estio could read their hearts through hand-holding. Estio fell into deep concentration. The chef on Estio's left realized his abilities and asked him to prove who the real one was. Estio concluded that the one on his left was genuine, while the one on his right felt empty. They argued that one of them was real. Estio understood everything and suggested going together to the Magic Research Division to confirm the real chef. He told Burong that killing monsters wasn't the only solution. They could also return the doppelganger to where it came from. Burong couldn't help but feel frustrated. Later at the Magic Research Division, Nubian noticed how strict the security had been when he saw numerous guards, unlike other guild buildings. He wondered if something secretive had been happening in the area. The guards greeted Estio and the others, and Estio stated that he had come to retrieve the monster the division had lost. The guards then provided directions to the first underground floor to meet the head. Nubian was impressed by the magically crafted stairs and the floating telemarbles around. Burong explained that telemarbles were used for surveillance, sending images to allow others to see what was happening on their side. Estio questioned where the other side was, and Burong clarified that it could be anywhere reachable by the telemarbles' magic. Estio then realized they were being watched, but Nubian disagreed, suggesting that the telemarbles were merely surveilling the area, as they were scattered all over the buildings and ceilings. Estio asked Nubian how he knew about them, and Nubian explained that they had similar ones at home, though the ones in the Magic Research Division were larger and more beautiful. At that moment, Nubian received thanks from a woman for his compliments. The woman, along with some others, appeared and was unsure if she had correctly addressed Nubian's name and title. Nubian corrected her, and she apologized, admitting she didn't know how to act around nobles. Realizing she had become distracted, she quickly approached Estio, warmly greeting him as a guild leader. The woman, named Xuan Burke, introduced herself and giggled suddenly, confessing to being a fan of Estio. She found his abilities unique and expressed a desire to research and experiment with them. Estio became anxious upon hearing this. Xuan also greeted Burong, who was frustrated due to overlapping requests with Estio. Xuan observed Bairang's apparent dislike for Estio. Nubian then confirmed their request regarding the doppelganger. Xuan expected the doppelganger to be killed but was relieved to learn it had been captured without any damage. Nubian mentioned that it could have turned into a bloodbath if Estio hadn't been there. Xuan dismissed the significance, stating that the monster wouldn't die easily. She explained that a doppelganger was a type of spirit originating from the physical world. Nubian wondered if Xuan was experimenting with creating spirits, but Xuan denied it, insisting it was impossible. She shared that her discovery of the doppelganger was accidental, as she stumbled upon it while investigating an old mirror displaying psychic phenomena. It was during this investigation that the doppelganger emerged from the mirror. Estio had realized why he couldn't read its heart. When Xuan proposed taking the spirit with them, Estio inquired about their plans. Knowing it was impossible to control or kill the spirit, Xuan decided to reseal it back into the mirror. She explained that spirits have a strong connection with the object they originated from, making it possible to trap them back inside. Mubian questioned the need to threaten the spirit, and Xuan clarified that it was for everyone's safety. Xuan threatened to destroy the mirror, compelling the doppelganger to return to its original form. Despite concerns about whether the spirit would be securely sealed, Xuan remained uncertain. Burong, expressing doubt, suggested killing it to avoid potential harm in the future. Disregarding any reservations, Burong labeled the spirit a monster and attacked the mirror. Estio attempted to intervene, but everyone suddenly froze as they witnessed something unusual. The doppelganger had replicated Burong, now with black hair. Upon glimpsing the doppelganger's appearance, everyone became puzzled by its black hair. Yun Burong shivered, and Xuan explained that doppelgangers reflect one's true self. This realization struck Yun Burong as she remembered her hair had originally been black. Estio then recalled that Yun Burong kept her true name and background a secret. Yun Burong shot a menacing look and attempted to attack again. Estio quickly commanded Mubian to intervene. Sensing the danger in Yun Burong's intent, Mubian realized she was set on harming everyone in the room. Trembling, Yun Burong insisted that no one should know about her past because a specific person had saved her. Examining her original features, Mubian wondered if Yun Burong originally came from the east. Yun Burong declared she should have eliminated the doppelganger from the start, and began blaming Estio. Estio sensed her fear and implored Xuan to forget everything she had just witnessed. He instructed her to only recall the doppelganger transforming into the head chef and using its powers, while insisting that Yun Burong had not been present. Suddenly, Xuan collapsed along with the chef and other researchers. Estio called out to Yun Burong, but she asked him not to use her full name. Despite Estio's assurance that others wouldn't remember the recent events, Yun Burong remained wary, noting the presence of telemarbles. Estio reassured her that it wouldn't be an issue and asked for her trust, even offering his life if he lied. Yun Burong lowered her weapon, realizing that Estio had already grasped all her thoughts the first time they met. She inquired once more whether Estio had wiped everyone's memories, and he confirmed. Puzzled, she questioned why Estio hadn't revealed her secrets, or used them against her. Estio explained that he simply didn't want to, offering no specific reason. In tears, Yun Burong expressed her disdain for beings like them, referring to them as monsters, and walked away. Estio then instructed the doppelganger to cease imitating Yun Burong. The doppelganger, confused, wondered why it was despised when it hadn't harmed anyone. It deemed itself useless and questioned the purpose of its existence. Estio, kneeling down, reassured the spirit that someone would come searching for it. He asserted that there was no life in the world that was without purpose. A month later, Estio got a request to go to the Turk branch. Mubian remembered that it was a big desert region in the south, and that made Parker worried about accepting the request. Estio said this request was about sealing the mirror spirit, and since it was connected to the doppelganger incident, he wanted to see it through to the end. When they learned they were going to a desert, Ahura got excited because it was his hometown. Nija was eager to meet Ahura's relatives. Mubian wondered if plants also had family structures, and Ahura explained that even though they didn't have bloodlines like humans, he could remember his mother and siblings. Technically, anyone could be their siblings, which was interesting. Instead of Kai, she recommended Yun Burong as Estio's support for the task. Estio remembered that Yun Burong had previously declined to work with him, but this time, she approached him to join. Yun Burong personally sought approval from the guild master to be part of Estio's team, wanting to stay close to the person who knew her secret. Estio took some time to consider and ultimately rejected her request flatly. He told her they had enough team members and promised to keep her secret. However, Yun Burong still didn't trust him. Estio said the same. He didn't want someone on his team who didn't trust him. Yun Burong felt frustrated and admitted she was wrong. She apologized for mistreating his allies before and promised not to harm anything without his permission, as the leader disliked it. Yun Burong asked Estio to make a promise to keep her secret. Estio agreed and accepted her conditions but clarified that his companions were allies, not pets. He asked Yun Burong to treat them as allies too. Yun Burong had no choice but to agree. Kai then told them to hurry, or the portal would close. The team went through the portal. Estio assured Kai they wouldn't take long, and Kai asked them to stay safe. Shortly after, the team reached the scorching hot desert. Parker felt anxious because they hadn't arranged for a camel beforehand. Nubian pondered whether Parker, the delivery expert, had ever delivered to a desert before. Parker explained that it wasn't practical for a bird to travel in the desert due to sandstorms. At that moment, Parker considered if Niju, who originally lived in cold mountains, was comfortable joining them. Niju assured them she was fine, mentioning her half-human nature. Nubian jokingly suggested shaving her fur if it got too hot, but Niju felt embarrassed at the thought. Nubian admitted they had no clue about the desert, and everyone agreed. Yun Burang then mentioned it was her 5th time visiting the desert. Nubian questioned the reason, and she said it was for requests. Nubian, curious, asked why someone young would go to the desert for requests. Yun Burang got flustered, claiming it wasn't his business. This led to an argument between the two, while Nubian and Parker urged Estio to continue leading the way. Nubian, feeling bored, proposed that Yun Burang share more about herself to bond with the team. He emphasized that it's easier to distance oneself from a stranger, but knowing someone's situation might make it harder. Yun Burang couldn't come up with a response. The team had gathered everything they needed, except for a way to get to Turk. Parker suggested using camels, but Yun Burang said they needed a skilled astrologer to guide them. When Estio looked puzzled, Parker clarified that astrologers were people who predicted things using the stars. However, they were banned in the Ruberazan Empire because they seemed like frauds. Nubian disagreed with the idea. Yun Burang stressed the importance of finding a genuine astrologer, and mentioned that astrology was similar to the Empire's shamanism. Estio and Niju were still confused by the conversation. Yun Burang sighed and explained that astrologers could read the stars' paths and were necessary for traveling in deserts. They could even locate oases in the middle of the desert. Parker suggested using a map, but Yun Burang exclaimed that the magical axis in the Turk desert constantly changed, and maps and magical compasses wouldn't help at all. Parker then wondered how the magical axis changed. Yun explained that there were mirages that could make one hallucinate, and monsters could jump out at any moment. She insisted that they needed to find a proper astrologer since the desert was a dangerous place. The others then wondered what to do. Yun Burang suggested following the merchant caravan since that was what she usually did. These merchants hired guards to protect themselves from monsters and thugs. Parker then realized that they should offer their services as escorts, and Yun Burang confirmed that. Nubian, Parker, and Estio then agreed with Yun Burang's plan. Afterward, many merchants looked for escorts with various combat skills. Estio's team was amazed to encounter so many of them. The Ignis Guild mark on Estio's uniform caught people's attention, sparking discussions around them. Parker suggested joining the biggest merchant troupe. Yun Burang thought it was the perfect moment to use their guild's name. At that moment, Estio sensed something and turned to look. A child approached and inquired why Estio didn't have a star. The girl explained that everyone was born under a unique star, which could reveal one's fate, guiding them on a path. She said her family and other mercenaries had stars, but she wondered why Estio didn't have one. Nubian then accused the child of being a scammer. The girl responded by telling Nubian that he had an ugly-looking star, predicting a tough life ahead. Nubian was displeased, insisting he was handsome, but Yun Burang told him to calm down, clarifying that the child referred to his star, not his face. Nubian kept insisting that his star was beautiful too. The child went on to describe Parker's star as small but shining gently, suggesting Parker might be a guardian angel. Parker corrected her, saying he was not an angel but an avian, someone with wings. Despite this, the girl continued to call him an angel because his star appeared gentle. All of a sudden, an elderly man showed up and insisted that the child used to be a star contractor. The girl then named the child Alzanib, and he introduced himself as Russell, the head of the Parima merchants. Estio, in turn, revealed himself as the leader of the Ignis Guild, causing Russell to get visibly nervous. In his mind, he marveled at encountering the rumored rookie executive with the ability to understand people's thoughts. Russell then introduced Alzanib as his niece and one of the most skilled star contractors in the desert. Parker curiously asked about the term, star contractor, and wondered if it was similar to being an astrologer. Russell clarified that star contractors weren't your regular astrologers. Instead, they could directly hear the whispers of stars. They earned the title because they formed contracts with star spirits, making them highly esteemed individuals. Russell mentioned that Alzanib suggested coming to the job hunters area, believing they could find exceptional individuals, and he was astonished to meet the leader of the Ignis Guild. Estio questioned whether Russell was looking to hire mercenaries, to which Russell replied that he had already hired someone, and someone was calling him from a distance. A man had called Estio a black-haired brat, and Estio recognized the way he spoke. It turned out to be Josemark and others from the Ballista Guild. Even the merchants recognized Josemark's team. Josemark laughed it off and said that the guild had fallen apart after their guild master ran away. He explained that they had been working as mercenaries lately, and the others silently greeted Estio and his team. Estio hadn't expected to meet them again, and Josemark agreed. Then, Josemark noticed Estio's blindfold and wondered if he had hurt his eyes. Estio claimed it was something like that, and Josemark worried if he would be okay working without his sight. Josemark assumed that Estio's rank had gone down for him to end up in the Turk desert. Just then, they noticed Yun Burang glaring at them, and the former Ballista members freaked out to see her. Yun Burang told them not to talk to her. Estio had wondered if they were the ones hired by the Parima merchants. Josemark, feeling concerned, confirmed and pondered whether it was the same team as Estio's. Russell then clarified that it wasn't possible because he lacked the funds for an additional team. In response, Estio asked Russell if his team could join them since both groups needed to reach the Turk tribe's village. Russell expressed his concern, mentioning that he couldn't afford to pay them. However, Estio assured him that they didn't need any money. Despite Russell's worry about Ignis Guild members working for free, the others were determined to reach their destination. Russell eventually agreed, cautioning them that Parima merchants never made requests without expecting something in return. He emphasized the need to lose some to gain some, reflecting a merchant's mindset. To address their concerns, he promised to share a portion of their sales once they reached the village. Everyone had gone to depart and looked around. They saw carriages, elephants, and camels. Parker wondered if they would ride camels, but Russell told them they would ride something different. He pointed at something that looked like a crustacean's leg, calling it unconventional. He reassured them that their ride was gentle and sturdy, but the giant figure's shadow loomed over the whole team. Russell claimed they were similar to horses. Estio then stepped forward and felt the creature's sturdy surface, wondering if it was wearing armor. Suddenly, he heard it tell him that it liked him. Since he was blindfolded, he asked Parker what kind of animal it was. Parker claimed it was too big to be called an animal. They turned out to be huge desert crabs. Estio was puzzled because he didn't know what a crab was. Parker explained that crabs usually lived in the sea, but the ones in the desert were large enough to be ridden, even though they looked a bit strange. Russell then instructed them to ride the blue desert crab while he took the green hairy desert crab. Nubian was unsure because he had no experience riding crabs. Russell assured him not to worry and just sit properly on the saddle and hold on. Nubian was concerned because the saddle was tilted to the side. Yun Burang then chimed in, saying it was obvious since crabs walked sideways. She suddenly appeared, riding a crab that walked forward in a straight line. Nubian was shocked and pointed out that it contradicted what she had just said. Yun Burang claimed she was riding a different species. Parker got on the crab and found Estio seemingly okay. He began to wonder if Estio was afraid of crabs. Parker became concerned for his leader and tried to reassure him that it was safe. He suggested Estio ride with Niju, but suddenly, the crab in front of him grabbed Estio, wanting him to ride it. Estio was placed on the saddle alongside Alzanib. Alzanib explained that Poco the crab was her blue desert crab. Shortly after, Alzanib confirmed once again that Estio didn't have a star. Estio pondered on the significance of lacking a star. Alzanib then clarified that every human is born with a star, and depending on the person's heart, the starlight can either shine brighter or dimmer. These stars, unique in shape, serve as indicators of potential danger. It was the basics of astrology. Estio began to feel like not having a star meant he wasn't truly alive. He started wondering if Alzanib was afraid of him, but the child insisted that someone liked by Poco couldn't be a bad person. Later that evening, the group set up camp and had dinner. Alzanib inquired about Parker's name, and he introduced himself as Bernie Parker. She questioned why Parker and not Bernie. Parker explained that in their village, when an avian is born, they receive the village's name, and it comes first in their own name. His given name was Parker. Just then, Josemark noticed something arriving and making a sound. It was a black cat, and Nubian suddenly had an ominous feeling. Josemark then wondered why Nubian, who wasn't a guild member, was following a kid like Estio. Mubian got upset and questioned why everyone kept calling Estiel a kid. Jose Mark argued that Estiel was just a rookie and looked like someone who couldn't handle swords and magic. He pondered how someone like Estiel got into the Ignis Guild. Suddenly, he considered if Estiel might be a noble's child. Mubian sighed, smacked Jose Mark, and told him But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe. If you want to see a part 5 of this recap, let us know in the comments section below. Till next time.